Hello, good evening everybody. Welcome to the English Theater. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. My name is Friederike Schilbach. I am the editor of Rita Bullwinkel at Aufbau Verlag, and we're here tonight to celebrate Rita Bullwinkel and her gorgeous novel Headshot, and especially the release of the German edition just published under the title Schlaglicht with Aufbau. We're thrilled to say that Rita, who is usually based in San Francisco, California in the US and currently in Leipzig for the Picador Professorship, is here with us tonight to celebrate the release with us. Thank you so much, Rita. I know you're behind the stage and can hear this. Thank you for being here tonight. Rita, your story collection Belly Up earned you the prestigious Believer Book Award as well as a Whiting Award, and your novel Headshot or Schlaglicht was already named one of the best books of the year by the New York Times. In addition to your writing, you're also the editor of literary magazine McSweeney's and teaching creative writing at the University of San Francisco. Sweat, fight, hope, and dream. That's what the girls at the core of your novel do in the heat of Reno, Nevada. Schlaglicht is a book about girl boxing. It's about the female body, about desire, about passion, and sisterhood. It is a muscular novel with a cool punch, and all of you here are given a front row seat to a boxing fight, entering the richly imagined inner lives of 8 girls. Each of them enters the physical intimacy of boxing, wants to hit the other girls with her fists, and each of them wants to become the best girl boxer in the country. Opera Daily magazine said, with a language that floats like a butterfly and insights that sting like a bee, Rita Bullwinkel takes the gloves of teenage girlhood, leaving it splayed out in all its wonder, humor, violence, and glory. Before we start, I'd like to briefly introduce you to the 2 guests who will be sharing the stage tonight with Rita. On the one hand, Christiane Neudecker, an esteemed writer herself with a rich background in literature and a deep passion for boxing, who gorgeously translated the novel into German and also found the title, Schlaglicht. And on the other hand, Teresa Bücker, who will be our moderator tonight. Teresa herself is a writer, a thinker, a public speaker, known for her spot-on commentary on modern womanhood, social issues, and gender equality. Author of the widely acclaimed book, Alle Zeit, eine Frage von Macht und Freiheit. A big thank you also to our partners who are presenting this launch of the German edition together with us, the Picador Gastprofessur in Leipzig and Holtzbrinck Berlin. Thank you so much for making this evening possible, namely Sophie Grötsch and Friederike Busch. And of course, the English Theater for hosting us here at this beautiful venue tonight. For now, I'll leave the stage to Rita, Teresa, and first of all, Christiane, who will introduce you to Headshot and Schlaglicht. Thank you all for coming and have a wonderful night. And we'd be delighted if you, after the reading, would stay on for a brief moment. We'll have a glass of wine together, and Rita will also gladly sign books outside in the forum. Thank you.
Andy Taylor ballt ihre Hände, schlägt auf ihren flachen Bauch und denkt dabei nicht an ihre Mutter, die mit ihrem kleinen Bruder zu Hause hockt, nicht an ihr Auto, das sie gerade mal so hierher gebracht hat, nicht an ihren Sommerjob als Bademeisterin im überfüllten Stadtbad, nicht an den 4-Jährigen, den sie hat sterben sehen. Den 4-Jährigen, den sie quasi umgebracht hat, nicht an seine blau angelaufenen Wangen. Man sollte Teenager keine Kinder retten lassen. Es ist völlig egal, wie viele Erste-Hilfe-Kurse man belegt hat. Sie hat den Jungen mit ihrem abschweifenden Blick getötet. Auf seiner Badehose waren kleine rote Lastwagen. Er sah aus, als wäre er aus Plastik. Sie denkt nicht darüber nach, wie sich sein Oberschenkel anfühlte, als sie ihn schon tot vom Grund des Pools nach oben zog. Und wie leicht er sich greifen ließ, weil er so klein war. Sie sieht zur Dachluke hinauf, zu dem Licht, das von dort oben in dieses beschissene Gym fällt, und sie denkt an die Fehler, die sie beim Kämpfen immer macht. Ihre nachlässige Deckung, die faule Linke, die ihr wegsackt, wenn sie nicht daran denkt und ihr Gesicht nicht richtig schützt. Sie denkt darüber nach, wie Artemis Victor sie kriegen wird. Wenn Andy Taylor darüber nicht nachdenkt, ist der Kampf blitzschnell vorbei. Andy Taylor muss auf ihre Distanz achten und auf ihr Zentrum. Andy Taylor muss auf ihre Haltung achten.
Such a joy to hear it so gorgeously translated into German. I'm going to read the same section in English where it's just from the beginning of the book. Andy Taylor is pumping her hands together, hitting her own flat stomach, thinking not of her mother sitting at home with her little brother, not of her car, which barely got her here, not of her summer job, her lifeguarding at the overcrowded community pool, not of the 4-year-old she watched die, the 4-year-old she practically killed, and his blue cheeks. They shouldn't give teenagers the job of saving children. It doesn't matter how many CPR classes you've taken. She killed the boy with her wandering eyes. His swimsuit had small red trucks on it. He looked like he was made out of plastic. The feel of his thigh when she pulled him from the bottom of the pool, already dead, and the way it was so easy to grip because it was so small. She's not thinking about it. She's looking at the skylight and the light it's letting in on this shithole gym, and she's thinking about the things she always does wrong when she fights. Her lazy left guard, the way her left hand slips away and doesn't protect her face if she's not thinking about it. She's also thinking about the way Artemis Victor will get her. If Andy Taylor doesn't think about this, this fight will be over in a matter of seconds. Andy Taylor needs to think about her spacing and her stomach. Andy Taylor needs to think about her stance.
Thank you for coming tonight. We'll spend about an hour here on stage talking about the book and the translation, and at the end we will take questions from the audience. So if anything comes up, you can ask it at the end. Rita, reading your book and how you describe the boxing scenes, especially how you describe the bodies of the girls and the techniques, I thought you've been boxing yourself for years, or at least watching a lot of boxing, but you haven't.
It's true.
So when developing ideas for a novel, did you think about sports in general as a topic, or were you drawn to boxing right away? What fascinates you about boxing?
I was drawn to boxing right away. I'm definitely not the first writer to write a book set in the world of boxing, and I'm sure I won't be the last. I think the reason why I was drawn to it was for a couple reasons. One is because I think so many elements of the sport are itself incredibly theatrical. The ring looks so much like a stage, and the way boxing matches are often lit can look like a theater. Also, the rare opportunities I have had to watch boxing, I will confess, entirely recorded. I've never been to a live boxing match. It has always struck me that the way the bodies move look like dialogue, and that interests me about as someone who has chosen language as a medium, which is an incredibly clunky medium. I feel like I'm always encountering painters and musicians and kind of marveling at the dexterity of the medium they've chosen. And language actually can be quite limited. And so because of that, I was interested in what other kinds of dialogue there were, and thus interested in writing a book that takes place almost entirely without spoken speech, and the realm of a boxing match and of a boxing tournament allowed for that. I do have a background as an athlete, like both of you. I was a competitive youth athlete for my entire childhood and young adulthood, most successfully as the co-captain of a Division I water polo team. I competed in the Junior Olympics. It's 7 or 8 times. I need someone, I couldn't figure it out recently, but spent a lot of time as a young adult in cars, driving to myself or my parents driving me to tournaments at all parts of the country to often meet another me. And so this space of the tournament of being so far away from your home, but entering into a familial, a familiar setting every time to meet someone that is kind of like you, but not, was something that interested me. But you are also both athletes.
Not really. I didn't compete in high school. I run now, but it's not that common, and it's not organized in Germany like it is in the US. But did you compete in high school already?
In high school, not at all, no. I only started kickboxing when I was 33, I think. And I remember writing to the mixed martial arts studio that I wanted to go to. I felt so old. I was like, I'm sorry, does it even make any sense to start at my old age? And thank God the owner was like, come on over. Never too late to start. And I'm so grateful for that, because to me it is a balance between writing, where I'm in my head a lot, and we just spoke about that, think about sentences and words, even words, just for ages, and trying to find the right word, even in my own writing. And then by the end of the day, I have to get off my desk and my head feels like a balloon. So it's really important to get back into my body. And when you have a fist flying towards your face, I guarantee you will be back in your body so quickly. So yeah, it's to me it's necessary for writing.
I think it's quite common. You're obviously both such accomplished writers. I think that writers in general are just obsessive and addictive, and it like makes sense that one would seek out being punched in the face, for instance. It just like one follows the other. It's almost.
Yeah, I take my running shoes to every city I have a reading, and I run the cities I'm reading in every morning.
Incredible. Wow.
And you often hear about writers like Haruki Murakami, I think.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking when you were talking.
As well. So yeah, I have to admit, when Friederike Schilbach, when she contacted me first about your book, I was jealous that I hadn't written it myself. So because this is something that is, I mean, you said, of course, you are not the first writer to write about boxing, but to me, you are one of the first writers who actually write about female boxing, like Frauenboxen in that precision, and especially in that competitive weekend with the tournament. For those of you who haven't had a chance to read the book yet, it is basically one tournament that we get to see and live through round by round. So yeah, it is brilliant. And I would never have guessed that you don't have a background in boxing. I actually, yesterday, in an interview, I claimed otherwise.
I love that.
Maybe you have to take it up now.
I know.
Yeah,
oh God, it would be so embarrassing.
Just for the story, you know?
Yeah.
Did you learn anything from being a high school athlete for your career in writing? Did you envision yourself spending so much time at a desk later in life?
That's such a good question. I mean, I guess in everything in hindsight, you know, I guess it makes like some sense. But I'm always very jealous when I meet writers who recount these stories of being, you know, 6 or 7 or 8 and always knowing that they were going to be a writer and having some sense of clarity. I think as a very young person read obsessively, but mostly these like serialized pulp books like Nancy Drew that are, I feel like I almost, I got so bored with them, you know, because they're so formulaic. And then I thought, oh, well, I guess that's kind of what's out there. And then in high school, in the US, I went to a large public high school. The books that were assigned to me, it was like, Catcher in the Rye 4 times, Pride and Prejudice, To Kill a Mockingbird another 5 or 6 times. And I was like, well, I guess that's really what's out there. And I would not have even in high school have said that I liked English or liked literature. It was something that had to be studied for the standardized tests. But in middle school and high school, that sense of obsessiveness and abandon required for training, I think it is kind of good practice for being a writer, because you just have, so much of it's done alone. And you have to, I don't know if you feel this way when you're writing your books, but you have to kind of build up a sense of grandeur for yourself alone while you're creating something. The stakes have to be real. And I think in order to compete in an athletic tournament, you have to do the same thing. You have to kind of build a narrative around why it matters, even though if on another level that narrative is delusional or only something that is held for yourself. But no, it wasn't until I was about 18 or 19 and I went to college. I took an introduction to creative writing class, and I, with this brilliant writer, Joanna Howard, and everything she assigned was changed me more than anything I had ever encountered thus far in my life. And you can only take a class once to receive credit for it, but this introduction to creative writing class was so meaningful to me that I audited it, so I took it not for credit 2 more times. I just stayed at the beginning level for as long as I could.
There's a lot of writing about sports. What made Headshot stand out for you? What are the pitfalls when writing about women in sports?
Stand out, the topic itself, because Frauenboxen, as we call it, isn't a topic of literature so far. So there's also some kind of a prejudice against women boxing or female boxing by itself, because it is considered to be brutal or not ladylike still, even these days. People will go more for defense classes, self-defense classes. That is something that you should do, or that you are being confronted with. But to me, these classes don't really make that much sense, because you never ever will be attacked in the same move that they try to show you in 1 hour of self-defense or anything. To me, it is about being aware of your body and really heightening your reflexes and your strength and your confidence in yourself. And for that, you will actually have to learn a martial art sport. Doesn't have to be kickboxing. I can't really see if she's here today. I hope she is. A friend of mine, she's even a world champion in chess boxing. And
not a sport. I had not. Does everyone know what it is? It's amazing. I'd never heard of it before today.
It is a beautiful sport, because it goes for the brain and for the body. So the contestants, they actually have to sit down, play a round of chess, and the chess board is set often in the middle of the ring, and then
that
it will.
So crazy.
Yeah. And it is so fascinating, because, of course, when you are boxing against each other, the adrenaline will float your veins and your whole blood and your whole system, and afterwards you will go oh yeah, I will attack the knight with my queen, a move that you would never ever do, but your brain is just so heightened. And I think there's still a lot to be discovered in literature concerning sports, and especially female sport, because apparently we are not considered we are considered to be brutal if we throw a punch, but we can do that.
What was it like for you? What kind of sports narrative did you want to achieve with Headshot?
Yes, okay, so I think my two favorite sports narratives, one I read before I wrote the book and one I actually did read after, but they're both about a sport of which I know almost nothing about and have virtually no interest in outside the world of these books, but they're both about horse racing. I am totally obsessed with Kick the Latch by Catherine Scanlon and Lord of Misrule by Jamie Gordon. Something that I really love about both of those novels is that when you're in them, the world of horse racing is in the language being used and in the dialogue, and you feel like as though you could be reading about dragons. Like that's how otherworldly the space of the racetrack and the people who work it are. And I think I'm an incredibly voyeuristic reader. I like visiting places I've never been before, and both of those books transported me so fully into the world of horse racing that I felt like I was visiting another planet, and I was totally entranced. And I think about lines from that book and the world of horse racing all the time because of both of them. There's so many writers that write beautifully about sport. I think a kind of unpopular opinion about a very complicated book is, Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace is a book you could say a lot of things about, but the way it describes the feeling of playing tennis is totally magnetic to me. I feel like when I avoided reading that book for a long time. I was in college during the period when it was like a real fashion accessory. I'm sure, I don't know if this happened here, but it was like people would carry around this copy of Infinite Jest as some type of, I don't know, intellectual marker, and it was so insufferable and terrible. And so I thought, this must be a very bad book. I can never read it. And then I read it, and it was I was totally changed by it. But I thought, this isn't about pop culture. This is just about tennis. It's probably about both things. But Natalie Diaz, the American poet, writes about basketball with such elegance and grace. I feel like I tend to like books that are more, if they're going to engage with sport, that make me think or recognize or have a feeling about what it feels like to play a sport as opposed to what it feels like to watch a sport. There's quite a lot of books out there that I think are about what it feels like to watch a sport, and I'm less interested in that. Like Joyce Carol Oates' On Boxing is about going to see prize-winning fights at Madison Square Garden with her dad, and that seems like a book to me that's very interested in watching other people fight, which I'm less drawn to.
How did it affect reading the English version? Like, what kind of, did it have a physical effect on you when you read it? Could you feel it?
Yeah, it's a little bit like watching a fight, and where you just said like you don't like books where people are just watching a fight. I tend to see when we have tournaments, I train at Mixed Martial Arts as MMA Berlin, and when there is a tournament there, you can see the audience, like the adrenaline is creeping into their bodies. I once had a friend of mine over who is actually a pianist, and he is not allowed to throw a punch because his fingers are like really worth something. But he was like, he started pacing back and forth because he couldn't contain himself anymore because he was so drawn into the fight. And in a way, I think your book does that too. Like there's a lot of energy jumping over into the veins of the reader, and I loved that. I can't say that I had to jump out and run to training, but it does make you want to move, and that is a lot what we can wish for as authors.
I mean, wow.
Can you describe to us how you gain access to the book before translating it? What do you need? How do you develop an idea for the translation?
I have to carry it around with me for a long time. The title gave me a headache because it has, in English, so many layers, and you cannot just, you could just, these days, you could let it stand as an English title, and people would probably know what it means. But in this case, I wasn't even sure. It might have just been viewed as a headshot in the sense of portrait. So yeah, I needed to carry it around with me in my mind and in my heart for a long time. And then I basically started, I kind of crawled into it. And I translated chronologically, but the first draft was very close to the meaning of the words, but it was clear that it didn't have yet the rhythm. And so I combed through it again and again and again until I felt that the translation actually gives justice to the original language, because that is something, it is also very poetic, for example, and you have to make sure that you contain all these layers, that you don't just go for the one thing that might jump at you from the very beginning, the energy, and then the whole thing is very energetic, but you really have to find the poetry in it, or the peaceful moments, or the scary moments, or the visions. And yeah, I hope I managed.
Did you collaborate on the translation? Did you talk to each other?
No.
No.
I was brought in a little bit with the discussion about the title, which I was just totally electrified by, that you found such a perfect translation that also has so many dual meanings in German. I was so thrilled by that and so excited to hear that it is also a title that has many faces.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I could have contacted Rita. I was thinking about it several times, but on the other hand, I thought, she's in here. I have all I need, and I kind of, I like the idea of meeting you afterwards when I have everything figured out and. Yeah, try to hear your voice first before getting distracted by the real human being.
I mean, we met today for the first time, which is it's quite emotional for me. I mean, for someone that has spent so long with your work and made it into this whole other body, I mean, it's pretty magical.
It is, I can confirm.
How long do you work on a translation like that?
Good question. I think it would be half a year.
Do you do anything else while doing the translating, or do you have to be really in that voice?
That was interesting to me because I was also at the time about to finish my own book, and at first I had this idea that I could split my time up and do one thing in the morning and then go out and then do another, translate in the morning and write on my own stuff in the evening. But that didn't work at all. So yeah, I basically had to take bigger sections and then get back to something of myself. It helped that I have a phase in writing when I write myself where I can't read anymore at all. I can't read any German books. I only read English because otherwise it will interfere with my own language. And so it helped that I was used to only read in English while writing myself. But in this case, there was actually one story of mine where I was like, okay, now Rita is creeping into my...
I'm so sorry.
It was really funny. I detected it rather quickly, but I was like, that I didn't write that. And it was fun to find out who apparently did.
We'll let you collaborate now here on stage. You're going to do a reading for us from the book together, and you'll introduce Rachel DeRico and Kate Hefner to us.
This is going to be an amazing performance devised by Christiane, which I'm so excited about. We're going to read alternating in German and English almost like we're boxing with words.
Für Rachel Dorico beginnt der Kampf folgendermaßen. Sie befindet sich in einem Raum. Der Raum sieht aus wie eine Lagerhalle, aber jemand hat ihn zum Palast umgetauft. Alle, die sich in ihrem Blickfeld befinden, sehen gleich aus. Die Leute stehen getrennt voneinander, namenlos und einsam mit verschränkten Armen. Die Leute stehen unterhalb. Sie sind kleiner als Rachel, nicht auf Ringhöhe, außerhalb des Scheinwerferlichts und weit weg von allem, was hier gleich wichtig werden wird.
314 thinks Kate Heffer. Kate Heffer thinks 159265. Kate Heffer is counting the ratio of a circle's circumference compared to its diameter. The predictability of the numbers helps her. She had to memorize the first 50 digits of pi for extra credit. Now the memorization with its sturdy sameness every time is a comfort and a habit.
Rachel Doricos Mützentaktik funktioniert hervorragend. Sobald ein Treffer gewertet wird, lässt sie die Lippen flattern wie eine Opernsängerin, die sich einsingt. Die Geräusche, die sie in den Ring prustet, sind irritierend. Rachel Dorico hebt ihre Armbeuge zum Mund und bläst darauf. Die Luft, die zwischen ihrem Arm und ihrem Mund entweicht, klingt wie ein trötender Elefant.
Kate Heffer looks horrified. Bits of Kate's hair protrude out of her headgear and are stuck to the sides of her face. 3589 thinks Kate Heffer. Kate Heffer thinks 793238.
Rachel Dorico ordnet die 8 Kampfrunden nach Bildern. Sie entwirft einen Korb voller Dinge, anhand derer sie sich an den Kampf erinnern kann. Rachel benutzt diese Bilder als Eselsbrücke. Sie wird sich, wenn sie die Geschichte ihres Siegs nacherzählt, durch die innerlich aufgereihten Bilder an die Dynamik des Kampfes erinnern. Daran, wo es knapp wurde und wo sie dominierte. Ihr Onkel hat ihr das beigebracht. Er sagte ihr, dass es leichter sei, sich an Bilder als an Worte zu erinnern. Wenn etwas Bedeutsames geschähe, solle sie sich an das hellste Ding erinnern, das sie sähe, und es dann Augenblick für Augenblick in ihre Erinnerung einsortieren. Deswegen muss sie sich bestimmte Objekte einprägen. Die werden dann Schlüssellöcher zur Erinnerung, durch die sie hindurch auf den kompletten Kampf zugreifen kann. Wenn Rachel in Zukunft an diesen Kampf denkt, wird sie sich in dieser Reihenfolge an Folgendes erinnern. Plastikhut, $100, wohlgeformter Zuwachs, guter Junge, guter Hund, Sparfuchs, gute Nacht.
Kate Heffer, on the other hand, in this first round is still counting her numbers. She is counting backwards and forwards, stabbing at time and the rhythm of her movements in the ring with a jagged, ill-constructed implement. Kate somehow knows that she is in over her head, that Rachel Dorico has better tools than her, but the momentum of the fight already has Kate Heffer in its grip, so it's too late, or Kate thinks it's too late to change anything at this point. 4626 thinks Kate Heffer.
Alle tragen Plastikhüte, denkt Rachel Dorico. Schau sie dir an. Alles, was Baumwolle sein soll, ist eigentlich geschmolzenes, gewobenes Plastik. Wenn du genau hinsiehst, kannst du einzelne Partikel erkennen. Wenn ich den Hut von dem Typen da drüben anzünde, wird er schmelzen, statt zu brennen. Der blaue Saum wird in kleine Pfützen zertropfen. Rachel stellt sich vor, wie alle ihre Klamotten auf dem Boden vor ihr liegen. All die Basketballhosen und ausgelatschten Turnschuhe und uralten Plastiktrikots ihrer älteren Brüder. Das meiste davon ist aus Plastik, denkt sie, besonders die Trikots. Rachel würde ihre Klamotten gerne hier ausbreiten, sie einfach auf den Boden von Bobs Boxpalast kippen, als wäre sie in ihrem eigenen Zimmer. Sie fragt sich, welches Trikot wohl am ungefährlichsten wäre, wenn es auf ihrem Körper schmilzt. Welche Plastikshorts würden ihre Haut am wenigsten verletzen? Fla, prustet Rachel durch ihren Mundschutz hindurch. Sie hat schon genug Treffer gelandet, um diese Runde zu gewinnen. Kate Heffer hat sich nicht mehr im Griff. Kates Struktur, ihr Notizbuch, ihre farblich markierten Erinnerungszettel sind längst auf und davon.
4338 thinks Kate Heffer. Kate's gone into a panic and is losing badly. She looks weak and afraid. The judges and the onlookers can actually see the wince in her eyes when she sees the hit coming for her. Kate doesn't want to lose this match. Kate is trying to be the best at something. All Kate wants is to be the best at everything, and she feels that she has been tricked or has somehow ended up striving for the wrong thing. Doesn't winning always count as winning? No, it doesn't, remembers Kate. Sometimes Kate remembers winning can be seen as threatening. What Kate wants out of the next 16 minutes is not necessarily the win of a match, but the win of doing what she is supposed to do. Kate Heffer is a conformist. She's not good at asking questions. Part of this is based on the fear that things will go wrong if a question is asked, which has happened before, did happen before, could happen again. And so Kate is what's known as a people pleaser. Kate Heffer wants to please her parents. Kate will wear pink and smile ear to ear for every single picture. She never gets tired of taking family pictures.
Aber jetzt ist Kate in Reno. Sie verzählt sich, verzettelt sich, verstolpert sich in den Zahlen.
How did she get convinced to do something that she had the possibility of being bad at?
Wie konnte sie in eine Situation geraten, in der sie wahrscheinlich verlieren wird?
Kate Heffer's mother once told her that girls grow up faster. Kate doesn't want growing up to be about losing. All Kate Heffer has is her ideas of winning.
Wenn sie irgendetwas mit Sicherheit weiß, dann, dass es ihr Traum sein sollte, die Beste zu sein.
Rachel Dorico might be over there spitting and crying and losing her mind, but Kate's got a lid on it. Kate will lose this match with a lid on it.
Vielleicht denkt Kate, wird der Kampf sich noch drehen, wenn ich einfach weiter rückwärts zähle und es so mache, wie ich es kenne und kann.
Maybe, Kate thinks, maybe this other girl, this sputtering octane valve, will give up or burn out and die.
Thank you so much. I usually don't listen to audiobooks, I just read, but I can totally see myself listening to an audiobook of this. It's just great. Thank you. So you just introduced us to 2 of your characters, and there's 8 total. I was talking to another author yesterday at a birthday party, and I was talking about your book, and she was like, oh my God, she has 8 characters. How did she do it? Was it hard, and can you tell us a bit how you constructed your characters and the plot?
Yes, it was both a joy and a challenge to have 8 main characters. The book, something I've realized that in case you haven't seen it, it's structured as a series of face-offs, and it's literally structured as a tournament. So you have this kind of map at the beginning that shows you the fights and who will be against who. And the way I came up with that, and the book does stick very closely to that structure in terms of like the first section is the first match. And between 2 young women, Andy Taylor and Artemis Victor, and each section really follows that of them being matches against 2 girls, one against one another. And the way I landed on that structure was I had written something that it was not a first draft of this book. It was it looked like a manuscript. It was whatever, a few hundred pages, and it was about, it looked much more traditionally structured. There was a first person past tense character who was a young female boxer. And I was at a residency and I reread what I had written of this thing. And I realized that the only parts of the draft that were at all interesting to me were when she was actually in the ring fighting someone, when she wasn't speaking, when her mind could wander and project on other people and what she was doing and why she was doing it. And so then I thought, oh, well, the only book I'm capable of writing needs to be entirely set inside of a boxing ring and in a boxing match, and it has to be a tournament. And so maybe like 20 minutes after reading this full draft, I drew the tournament bracket and I came up with the 8 character names and who they were going to fight and when, and the books, and then I wrote it linearly, and it stayed very close to that. And in general, I tend to write like that, where I'll write a lot and then I throw a lot of things away, and then I'll begin something and it will be the real thing. And I felt like one of the challenges of having 8 main characters and also having a tournament structure is that this tournament has no back door. So when the girls are beat, they are exiting, but I didn't want their consciousnesses to leave the book, so I devised this method that I tried to explain that the consciousnesses of the girls that were beaten are kind of cannibalized by the victors. Like they end up inside their bodies. So the consciousnesses of the past girls, the ones that have lost, get carried with them into the next match. So even though the tournament gets smaller and smaller, my hope is that the book has a feel where the crowd is still just as large in the end. Like in the last championship match, hopefully all 8 of the characters are somehow, their consciousnesses and projections and pasts and futures and joys and pains are all still there. But it was a challenge.
Did you decide who was going to win at the end, or did that come naturally while writing?
No, it came naturally. I did not know who was going to win. I didn't know who was going to win each match until I was writing it. I did feel that sometimes I would have to continue with a girl if I didn't know who she was. I feel very warmly towards all of them, but sometimes I felt like if I had really understood one of the characters, that I didn't need to have them go on to the next round, but that the characters that I understood the least, I had to keep sending them on to keep fighting.
What was it like translating them? Did they already sound differently, or did you have to give them an individual sound?
I think, well, they had their own voice in the original, so I think from the very beginning I tried to take that into account. But what really, really, really freaked me out was the fight of Iggy and Izzy Lang.
I'm so sorry.
Seriously. Because you have like these 2 cousins, and they are being thrown into the ring, and actually one of them is quite annoyed because in the gym where they train, they do that exact same thing. There are only 2 females, and they're like, oh yeah, great, 2 women, you can fight each other. And so they are in the ring at that tournament up against each other again. But imagine having to translate something where you have one person called Iggy, like I-G-G-Y, and then one called Izzy, I-Z-Z-Y. I was so grateful to Aufbau Verlag that I knew there would be the editor checking the whole thing and 2 assistants of the editor checking the whole thing. And I think they caught 1 or 2 Iggy and Izzy's mixed matches. So, yeah.
Yeah, I felt my brain tested reading that chapter.
I mean, it's kind of unfair because I do feel like there is some purposeful, like the boundaries of each of the girls kind of go away and their bodies bleed into one another. So, like there are long sections describing them, imagining them trying on each other's bodies. And so there is this sense of already the book is playing with this idea of like, where does my body end and yours begin? You're a saint and a genius. Thank you for tolerating my purposeful confusion.
No, of course it fit. It fit this idea, and but just translating it, this particular chapter was a challenge.
Christiane, you've written a book about teenage girls yourself. How do you write from a teenager's perspective?
Well, that one, it's called Sommernovelle. It takes place end of the 80s. So that was basically my own teenage years. Like when the wall came down, I was 15 and I couldn't have cared less. Like seriously, like when you are 15, GDR, it was so far away for me. I didn't think in terms of Ost and West because I grew up in the South. So being 15, it's like I was thinking in terms of North and South. And that was what set me off, like trying to focus or transport myself back into that time and into the dreams I had back then, into the rage I had back then, into the fears especially. Like back then we were fearing sour rain and all these kinds of things and the atom bomb, and so I didn't, how do I say it? I didn't look at it from above. I just tried to go inward and think of myself as a teenager back then, and then it felt quite natural writing the book.
Can you do that as well? Go back to that time and really feel the emotions when you were 15?
I think so. I certainly tried to remember them for this book. It's a very, it's a very strange time, being a teenager. Everything feels very outsized, and you have no agency. And the world enacts itself on you in incredibly dramatic and violent ways. And I mean, I think one of the central questions in the book is like, why are these young women participating in this tournament, in this sport that has not only like no societal reward, but even negative societal reward? Like there's really nothing to be gained by doing it. It's not something celebrated really by anyone else except for the people who are actually doing it. And I think that when you are a teenager, that you're looking very hard for someone to maybe look closely at you, to understand not only who that person is, but also who you are. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're all there. It's like someone has to engage with you when they're boxing with you. They have to consider you as someone that has the potential to be powerful. And I think for all of the young women in the tournament, they are, by and large, mostly very powerless. And in some of them, I'm sure, in temporary ways. But that feeling of powerlessness while the world is enacting so heavily on you was one that I remember.
Yeah, I think when I was reading it, I saw that you really showed their rich inner lives, and teenage girls are so often stereotyped as being all the same and having all of them having the same interests, same problems. Was that a motivation for you to show it's different?
You've an eloquent aspiration. Maybe not. I would be delighted if the book had that effect. Maybe not. I don't think I'm like a smart enough person or writer to sit down with an aspiration like that, even though it's one I greatly admire. I think I was interested in all of the possible reasons that someone would do this. Play a sport that no one is watching with no societal reward. And I mean, different writers have different, I'm so curious to know both of your philosophies of this, but different writers who don't write autofiction have different relationships to how they view character writing. And I think I am one of those writers who does view it very, very similarly to acting, where you invent these characters, but in order for them to have any reality or meaning, they have to be, even if you're not gifting them a specific trauma or love that you've encountered, you have to bring your own lived experiences to them. So I kind of think of them all, of the 8 characters, as being like, they're all me and not me, if this makes sense. Like they're all aspects of things I've felt, even though I think of them as distinguished characters, in the way that I think if you see a really adept stage actor, you feel that they are, even if they haven't, for instance, lost a father and they're playing a character who's lost a father, that there's still some like real emotion that they're bringing to it. So, okay, one other thing I'll say about that, about all 8 of the girls and how there's 8 of them and it's such a crowd, is I kind of thought of it as, have any of you ever seen one of those experimental Shakespeare plays where the same actor plays all the characters? That was I was like, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, hopefully, you know.
You have a background as a director. Yes. How do you go about your characters?
Yeah, I'm a trained theater director actually, and I guess it plays into my writing a lot, because as a theater director, you also have to crawl into the minds of different characters. However, of course, you then have the actors, and they bring their own character to the table. So in theater, it is always kind of a, I wouldn't say compromise, but it is a mixture of my vision and the actor's vision, and of course the writer's vision, if I have not written the play. So I kind of love being all of these combined when I write. I love that I am almighty and I'm the one who decides what the character is going to be like. And the best moments, of course, always are when the characters do things you didn't expect them to. Like when they suddenly develop a life of their own and they start, like you try to write and make them go into one direction, and for some reason it gets worse and worse and worse, and you start doubting yourself as a writer, and then after a while you realize, no, the character would never ever go into that direction. It would do the opposite, and suddenly it feels natural again. So, yeah. It's
such an interesting spectrum with writers. I mean, I was moved, I can't remember what, I think it was pre-pandemic. I saw Rachel Cusk speak in San Francisco, and she gave this kind of impassioned railing against, like, she was like, everything that is wrong with contemporary literature is people trying to imagine lives they haven't actually had. She was like, the idea that you could write about being a doctor without actually being a doctor that is the problem that people are trying. I love Rachel Cusk's works. It's stunning. But I was so interested that she would have that point of view. And then you have writers like Ottessa Moshfegh who describe like dressing up as their characters before they write them in like a super method acting way. But it's quite, I find people think about it quite differently.
I agree, and it can be so confusing to talk to other authors, how they come up with their characters. But yeah, to me, saying, like, basically you have to be a doctor to write about a doctor, that is outrageous. I
love that I disagree with it so intensely. Yeah. And I still love her work, and I'll go to every talk she has in San Francisco, etc. But
yeah, but to me, imagination is like, that is writing. Like, we need to be allowed to dream ourselves into other characters, into other worlds, and into other professions as well. So yeah, where would we be if, like, we would only be allowed to write about our own lives? Might be quite boring.
But also, it's like if you've written in the third person, like I don't know. Yeah, it's a strange stance.
What I really loved about your book is how you describe the girls' physicality, how you observe their bodies, and I think that might have been a difference because you live in a female body, and in literature, how authors write about women can be very flat, and it's often sexualized, and it's about beauty. And I was fascinated by how you described their bodies and what the metaphors you used. How did you visualize them? Because when I was reading the book and preparing this evening, I had the urge to draw them, to remember them. And
it is a challenge to embody women without sexualizing them, both on the page, but also I think even probably more challenging is on the screen or in photography. it's just like an incredibly charged image. Probably, you know, maybe this is a leap, but, you know, perhaps if you were to visit like a classical art history museum, maybe like one of the most charged cultural images we have would be like the female body. Someone charismatically told me that I hadn't realized that there was a lot of hair in this book. Like I described their hair a lot, you know, like how they wore it, what they were unhappy with about it.
It is a topic in sports, so I wasn't baffled by it at all.
It is. It was actually something as a youth athlete that it was. There's always, because it's kind of an I've always had very long hair. I don't have that long hair now, but it is kind of like if you're going to go running or do anything, you have to kind of reckon with the hair and what's an efficient way to rein it in, or yeah. So I guess I wrote about their hair. I did write about how they observe each other, like what they notice about each other's bodies, which I think is a byproduct of the fact that because I was a competitive athlete for so long, I've been kind of cursed with, for the sport I was especially proficient in, looking at people's bodies, and like I'll be in like a office meeting at a furniture shipping company and be like, oh, that person, like their shoulders, interesting, like would be extremely adept at, if they tried, you know, at this one specific backhanded shot. It's kind of like, okay, I recently had really severe roof trouble in my house, like it was raining inside, and then I had to learn all this stuff about roofs because I was living with this incredibly faulty roof, and now it's like I'm in Berlin, this other country, and all I can look at is like drainage systems and roofs. You know the way that is like if something attaches to your life, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, that gutter system, it's so innovative, you know? And it's the same way with someone's body, that if you are, for instance, I could imagine if you were an obsessive boxer, you would kind of walk into a room and you would look at people's bodies and you would notice things about them, and that was something interesting. I think, hopefully, I was able to accomplish without sexualizing the women. Is that, and this actually was important to me, was that this book does not have purposefully does not have a Freudian read. This idea that they're not enacting some type of like pent-up sexual aggression on each other. They're not lovers competing against each other, which is something that two other very popular sports narratives in our pop culture at the moment have. Challengers, famously. You know, this idea of sport being kind of a stand-in for sex or a libidinal drive. That is not what I think. That is not what's happening in this book. These women are doing something I think much weirder, like much stranger than sex, like way weirder. And them noticing the minutia of each other's like muscles and bodies and bones, I think is weirder and truer and hopefully more interesting. Yeah, I wanted it to be not that the book travels very drastically in time to their deep past and deep futures. You see how a lot of them were born, you end up seeing how all of them will die. And they do have sexual lives, they have people they love, but I didn't want what was happening in the tournament to be about that.
Did boxing change how your view on the female body and what you look at?
Absolutely. It also changed on how I view my own body. It's so funny, like there was a time when that was before COVID, I had a period where I went to training every bloody day. And so one evening I was like lying in my bed and I was like, oh my God, why is my cushion so uncomfortable? It's like, it is hard like a rock. And then I realized I was actually doing this. So my biceps had swollen up to a size that was really rock hard. And so you do like kind of a scan. So I actually found that quite accurate, how you view your opponent or friends of mine who then have to get into a specific fighting weight because you do have to announce in which section you are going to fight. So for example, you will have to go down to 68 kilos, and that for a non-boxing person might sound like a lot, but if you do sports, muscles are heavier than fat. So if you have a lot of muscles, you have a lot of weight, and it is really difficult to reach that kind of specific weight for the fighting day. And there will be the scales, and there will, like in some cases, you will have to, now I don't know the English term, abkochen, we would call it in German. Yeah, now I know she's here, she's laughing. Abkochen is something where you basically have to sweat out any water contained in your body, so you will reach the scales, and that is so gruesome on the body, but it works. But then of course you go onto the scales, and then the first thing you need to do is refuel with water, or ideally with some food, so you are then an hour later to get back into the ring. So there is a fixation on body, and also, as you mentioned, on hair, because nothing is more annoying than fighting and having your hair like blind your vision. And you have to find some kind of a braid or something that hopefully stays up for a while. And it's like the rooftops. I'm looking at bodies differently.
You didn't only write the novel, but it was very important to you what the cover would look like and the photographs used for it. We're going to show the photographs now here on stage. And they were shot in your living room. Why? How did that happen?
I became very when it was clear the book was going to come out, I was so excited and also very worried about what kind of cover I would get, because as we've been talking about, the image of the female body is such a difficult one to, I think, portray with interest and power and to make visually interesting. And I have a close friend, the photographer Jenna Garrett, who was the artistic director at Wired in San Francisco for a long time, who is most famous for an ongoing project she has documenting extremist right-wing vigilante groups in her native Ozarks in Missouri. But her color tone and the way that she photographs bodies, I have always been interested in and drawn to. She's really amazing with light, and I trusted her to be able to make some images that I would love. And so we put out a call, after a long discussion with her, we put out a call for, by a call, that makes it sound quite grand, we sent some emails to some San Francisco high school athletic listservs, being like, are you 14, 15, 16? Do you live in San Francisco? Do you play sports? Would you be interested in participating in this theatrical photo shoot where we stage you as boxers? You need the consent of your parents. They need to be there. It's going to be, in the inner sunset in the author's living room. And we just got 2 young women who responded, who are the young women who appear on Schlaglicht. Oh my gosh, I've just pronounced it so terribly. Say it one more time.
Schlaglicht.
Schlaglicht. And their names are Lucia and Athena. Those are their real names, which is amazing because they kind of sound like character names from the book. And they are not, neither of them are boxers, but they're both on their varsity volleyball teams. And something that was amazing was that they both showed up to my house with their parents, and they had never met before. They went to 2 different large public high schools on the other side, opposite sides of San Francisco together, or not with each other, but 2 different parts of the city where they had never encountered each other, but they had the weekend prior competed against each other in a warehouse in Reno in a volleyball tournament, because Reno is one of those cities close to San Francisco that has these large athletic complexes and hosts these youth athletic tournaments cheaply all the time, which is, of course, something I grew up with, which is why I set the book where I did, because that is the place it would have happened. But it was kind of incredible for them to meet in my living room and say, what's your name? I recognize you from the tournament in Reno. And they hadn't read the book. They didn't, the book had not come out. But it was really interesting. You can see it there with the water. That was me with like spray bottle. Yeah, I'm forever grateful to Jenna for gifting me with those images and letting them travel on all of these different covers. You can see the UK edition has a different one. The Italian edition will also have a different an image from the shoot, but a different one than you've seen. And I have some like limited edition prints of them with star-shaped hair clips that are out by the book signing that you are welcome to just take if you'd like. One of the other thing I'll say about the photographs that it's very fun is that Jenna and I are currently working together on collaboratively writing a book in images and words that is a speculative book that it's going to be very physically small, like 3 inches by 2 inches, and it's going to be published by etcetera in England, which publishes these very small, thin little short story length books. And so she's writing in images and I'm writing in language, and they have them like on the tube in vending machines and that kind of thing. So it's fun that we did this project, and then we're also like co-writing this book in for etcetera, which hopefully will be done soon.
Thank you. We'll open for questions in a bit. We'll talk a little bit more about how you use time in the book. You already mentioned it, because you're not only writing about the 7 different fights taking place, but you also talk about what happened in the lives of the girls before the tournaments and what will happen in their futures, making it even more complex. How did you go about it? Why was it important to you to take a glimpse in their futures?
I really wanted to gift them all a future. It was really important to me that the tournament is something that has made them who they are, but it's not something that defines them. Something I kind of am allergic to in a lot of sports narratives is this notion that one match or one competition goes on to define a person forever and ever, which just seems like deeply untrue to reality. And I also just think I had enough affection for the characters that I really wanted them all to die old, and I wanted everyone to know that they had so many things that were going to happen to them afterwards, and that they were all destined for these like long, full other lives, but you're just seeing them just for a moment.
It's a great contrast, having that tournament that is so important in that moment, and later when they look back, it was just a day or 2 days in their lives that they remember. Some remember more, some remember less about it, but doesn't have a big significance for their futures. Christiane, each sport has a unique pace to it, and it's structured with time. Boxing tournaments have rounds that are 2 minutes each. Soccer has halves that are 45 minutes long. How do you transport that into language, these different rhythms a sport can have?
That is a good question. I probably can't answer it because I have never written about any other sport. I wrote one uncanny story that takes place in a mixed martial arts cage. It was in my book, The Siamese Piano, and it's basically about, like, it can happen that a boxer or a fighter gets a punch and the brain swells up. That's the worst case scenario ever. So I have this one boxer fighting against someone who might be the devil, or his brain might be swelling up. I'm not going to tell you what, but that I could answer. For example, I'm not a long distance runner. I guess if I were to write a book about that, I would really have to dive deep into it because of the rhythm, because that is nothing that I have ever encountered. and I would want to make sure that this, to my imagination, stream of images and thoughts that might accompany you while running a long distance, you would have to find the right melody for that. But I've never done it.
Have you thought about finally taking a boxing lesson?
I don't know. Oh my God, I would take one from you. Maybe tomorrow.
Do you want to know what it feels like, or?
Okay,
because, like reading the book, did it interest you at one point what it feels like punching someone, or?
Okay, so even though I haven't punched someone in a boxing ring, there are other contexts. No, the sport that I was most adept at, water polo, is one that, depending on what place you are geographically, people either know a lot about it or almost nothing. For people that do know, it's a very physically brutal sport.
Can you explain it to us? Because I don't have a clue what water polo looks like.
Okay, so it takes place in a deep pool, so a pool that you cannot stand in, and like a basketball game, all players, except for, with the one exception, the goalie, travel the full length of the court or the pool. So there's 6 players besides the goalie in the pool at once, and everyone plays offense and everyone plays defense. And then there are 2 goalies, in which there are goals about the size of this table that guard the goal. And like hockey, there is a very detailed foul system and a penalty box. So if you committed specifically, everything under the water is legal, so a lot of the training is about how to protect yourself from being intensely hurt or drowned. And then above the water, it's kind of like what you can get away with, and you can actually hit someone a lot harder above the water than under the water, unless you've done a bad job protecting yourself, and you can hold someone's suit and then kick them and have leverage that way, which is very dangerous. And so if you hit someone above the water, then you have to go in a penalty box for 30 seconds while people play with one round down. So in that way, it's like hockey. But there's lots of broken fingers, lots of broken noses, lots and lots of lifelong injuries, and there's a lot of punches. One of the most famous water polo games ever happened during the Cold War when Hungary was playing, and it's called the Pink Game because there was so much blood in the pool. So I have actually wielded. I didn't need to research what it felt like to punch someone, but I haven't done it in a boxing ring.
Just underwater.
Yeah, we can hear where that energy came from that you put in your writings. I have one final question for the two of you. There's a quote in your book that says, "The adults wish they wanted anything as bad as these girl boxers wanted to be the best in the world at something." Do we lose something when we're growing up, and is it worth growing up?
I think you can. I think it's good to be grown up. Being a kid is horrible. I don't know. There were some good things, but it's so claustrophobic. I don't know. I don't want to go back.
I try to keep it up. I want to believe that I still have this ferociousness when it comes to dreaming and really wanting something, and I tend to throw myself into things 100%. Even with boxing, I work sometimes as an MC at the tournaments. So I am there with my whole heart, and this wholeheartedness, I strive to keep it. And yeah, so to me I actually stumbled over that. I knew what you meant concerning the adults that were in the room, because they are really fucked up. Like, they're coaches that don't care, the referees are horrible.
They're terrible.
So they are, and they all have this disinterest, and they just think, when is this over? Like some of you might know, when is this over? When can we get the wine they had been talking about? But yeah, I really hope we can keep those dreams.
Yeah, because usually when I see teenagers, I have the same feeling that you describe. I think, oh, it's horrible, that age. I never want to go back to that. But reading your book, it really made me appreciate that time. And I'm really looking forward to give it to my kids when they are 14, 15, to be able to read it.
The greatest compliment.
So are there questions in the audience? We will take a few if you have questions. We're inviting you to stay a bit longer. Christiane and Rita will be here signing copies of the books. You can get both the German or the English version outside. There's a book table from a local bookshop here. We're celebrating the launch of the German edition, Schlaglicht, and we're still celebrating the original one and spending the evening together. So stay a bit, and thank you so much for coming here tonight. Enjoy the fantastic novel at the pool or wherever you're spending your summer. I really recommend it. I loved it a lot, and I'm going to give it to a lot of friends. I'm talking about it nonstop because it's really, really fantastic. It was an honor talking to both of you tonight, and thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.